Teasel's Tudor Trivia.
Hi, welcome to this edition of Teasel's Tudor Trivia. Now, in the last edition of Teasel's Tudor Trivia, with the help of my trusty supervisor and research companion, Teasel the dog, I talked about that lovely subject of heart and entrails burial. And today we're going to continue looking at that kind of subject and looking at how remains were prepared for burial. Now, when a Tudor person died, the body was usually kept at the place of death until burial. Oh, spotted a cat. Obviously, a cat's more important than burial. The women of the family would prepare the body for burial by washing it and then wrapping it in a shroud, which was also known as a winding sheet. This shroud was sewn along the centre to cover the whole body, and then a cross might be placed in the middle of the chest. If the remains were of an infant, then they might be dressed in swaddling clothes and the chrism cloth, the cloth worn by the baby at baptism. Now, if the remains were of an important person, then they might be dressed in clothing of their rank, such as vestments if they were a clergyman. Cardinal Thomas Wolsey was recorded as being buried in all such vestures and ornaments, with his mitre, his crozier, and other such items. An important person might also be embalmed. The remains would be then put in a coffin or laid on a hearse, and the household would wear black mourning clothes. If the family were poor, they might borrow a coffin for the funeral service, but when it came to the actual burial, the person would be buried in just the shroud, so that the coffin could be used again. A normal everyday person that was simply washed and shrouded rather than embalmed would be buried as quickly as possible, as obviously the remains would begin to decompose. But if the body was kept at home overnight, then tapers would be lit around it, and a wake or night watch would take place. A wealthier person's remains might be put on view or lie in state for a while, so simple washing and shrouding wasn't enough. They'd also be embalmed. After the organs had been removed and perhaps prepared for separate burial, am I boring you? The body was washed with water or vinegar or wine. The mouth, ears, nose and throat would be stuffed with cloth, sponge or grass or straw that had been soaked in the liquid used for washing, and also stuffed with aromatic herbs and spices such as aloe, myrrh, acacia, nutmeg, cypress, sandalwood and cumin. Mercury might also be poured into the mouth, ears and nostrils to stop the brain decomposing and liquefying. Yuck. After that, the body was wrapped in linen, then cerecloth, a cloth coated with wax, then usually a lead envelope before being placed in a wooden coffin for burial. But who would be involved in preparing the remains of an important person for burial? That is a question that you're asking, isn't it, Teasel? Well, an apothecary would be involved as they'd provide the spices, but it was a chandler, a maker and seller of wax and tallow candles, who would do the embalming and also provide the candles and tapers to be put around the body or hearse and for the funeral. If a lead envelope was used, then a plumber would enclose the body in it and seal it. Here is what we know about the preparation of the remains of Queen Jane Seymour, Henry VIII's third wife, after her death on the 24th of October 1537. This extract is taken from Letters and Papers. First, the wax chandler did his office, taking out the entrails with searing, balming, spicing and trammelling in cloth. Then the plumber leaded, soldered and chested, and her entrails were honourably interred in the chapel. Friday, 26th of October, there was provided in the chamber of presence a hearse with 21 tapers about it, etc., and the corpse conveyed in honourable wise from the place where she died and laid beneath the hearse. All the ladies and gentlewomen put off their rich apparel, doing on their mourning habit and white kerchiefs hanging over their heads and shoulders, and there knelt about the hearse during mass afore noon and dirge after. There was also a watch kept nightly until the last day of the month. So there you go. We know that Queen Jane Seymour's heart and entrails were buried separately. I mentioned heart and entrails burial last week. They were buried where she died at Hampton Court Palace in the Chapel Royal there. But her body, her main remains, were moved to Windsor Castle and interred there at St George's Chapel. And of course, King Henry VIII would join her in that vault when he died in 1547. So, Teasel, what did you think of that? No, she didn't like the talk about liquefying brains at all. Thank you for joining us today. I do hope you enjoy these glimpses of Teasel and some great Tudor trivia as well. You can subscribe by clicking round about there. You can hit the bell to be notified as these videos go live. And of course, you can give us a like and leave a comment. We'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Teasel's Tudor Trivia.